So I noticed that for my geometry students, this is something that we ran into when we were trying to do the scale factor or the proportion. Some of the assignments, so we have to stop because we can't do the quadratic equation, and you guys do not know it, so we have to do this. This lesson will be a little bit different than any other lessons. I know period 4 we actually did that already, but period 5, 6, and possibly my Algebra 1 students, this lesson will be a little bit different. This video may be a little bit long, but at certain stage I would say you pause the video, you go on to Schoology and do a very simple quiz for me, because I just need you to know, or I need to know if you understand the concept or not. So let's just dive in. Quadratic equation, if you're in geometry, possibly you will run into this already. If you're in Algebra 1, possibly you have not. So let's just describe something that is what I would consider a quadratic equation. So let's say, starting from now on, you may run into an expression that looks like this. 5x squared plus 2x minus 7. Alright, so an expression like this is what we call a quadratic equation. And it's not difficult to tell. The only difference, or only things that basically stands out, is this term, the x squared. So if any expression that gives you the x squared term or y squared or whatever square term is what we call a quadratic equation. So this makes it a quadratic. So if you see this, if you see this, then it's a quad equation. Okay, so of course I'm missing the equal sign. So if you see this term, then you have yourself a quadratic equation. So normally you will have like a equal to 0 at the end. Okay, so that is a quadratic equation. So this whole thing is equal to 0. Sometimes they may have the same thing and say like 5x squared is equal to 2x minus 7. That whole thing is equal to y. That's still your quadratic equation because you have a square term. And if you're in Algebra 2, they may say 5x squared plus 2x minus 7 is equal to f of x, like a function of x. All of this a quadratic equation, so long as you have that x squared term. Alright, so let's talk about something that is not, just in case. So for example, I can give you a very simple 2x minus 7 is equal to y. That's like your slope-intercept form. This is a linear equation because linear equation basically you have x, you don't have x squared. So this is not a quadratic equation. Okay, so this is not a quadratic equation. However, sometimes it's very difficult to tell. For example, I can give you an example like this. It starts with y is equal to negative 7 plus 9x squared minus 2x. So this one, the order of things is a little bit different. However, I still have the x squared. So long as you see this x squared, yes, you get yourself a quadratic equation. So this is a quadratic equation. Okay. Anything else that I should mention? Let's say I give you another one. It's that y is equal to just 5x squared. So the question is the same thing. Is that a quadratic equation or not? So long as you see this, yes, it's a quadratic equation. So making sure that you know you're dealing with quadratic equation, you are going to come with another set of skills. You have to use something different to do the quadratic equation. Therefore, being able to tell if something is quadratic equation or not is very, very important. Alright, so okay, I should cover this as well. Sometimes, let's say, an expression looks like this. 4x to the power of 7 plus 2x to the power of squared x 6. This one I have to cover this just in case, because you may think, well, I have the x squared. However, I do have to say it, the highest power has to be 2. So if your highest power is not 2, let's say you have a 7, then this is actually not a quadratic equation. So you have to be really careful about determining which one is quadratic equation or not. So this one, the highest power has to be 2. I'm sorry if I make that confusion. I was like, watching the video and I realized, oh, I forgot to talk about that. So if the highest power is not 2, if it's like 1 or 7, then that's not your quadratic equation. Okay? When I was talking about this, I was saying like the order of things is a little bit different, and I'll show you what I mean by that. So we're going to talk about the standard form first. Standard form is basically quadratic equation, and we like to have it looking like this. We'll just keep with the y. So y is equal to a number called a, bx plus c. So that's what we call standard form, a bit like the slope-intercept form. So form is a representation of the quadratic equation. I should actually type that out just in case. Let's get rid of this. It's a standard form for the quadratic equation. Okay, or quadratic form, quadratic equation. So that's what they call the standard form. Basically what it means is, if it's a quadratic equation, it should look something similar to this. Let's say a is going to be 5x squared plus 2x minus 7. I think that's the same example. So in this scenario, we can actually pair up the a. So a is going to be 5, b is going to be a positive 2, c is going to be a negative 7. So we can pair those things up, which is going to be a key for this. So a is going to be 5, b is going to be 2, c is going to be negative 7. We are going to use this skill very, very soon. So being able to pair up the a, b, and c is very, very important. Okay, so sometimes your equation may not start with the standard form. So like one of the example I gave earlier, like this is not in the standard form because x squared should be the very first term, and then we'll have x, we'll have the 7 at the end. So we may have to rearrange this. Alright, we have to rearrange things. So let's give you an example. So let's say I have something like this. 18x minus 9x squared plus 2. So if I look at this, hopefully you can answer this. Is this in standard form or not? And your answer should be no, because the x squared, this thing, should be all the way up front, while the 18x should be in the middle. So just a little bit of a review if you're in Algebra 1. I'm trying to rearrange this into the standard form. So this whole thing, including that sign, has to go up front. So that has to move all the way up front. So I'm just swapping these two items. So y is equal to negative 9x squared plus 18x. If there's nothing in front of the 18, that means it's plus. And finally, I keep that 2 at the end. So this is a standard form. So now I actually have a standard form, and then I can safely say that my a is equal to this number, which is negative 9. B is going to be 18, while C is going to be 2. So when I am doing the number, I basically look at this. So this is going to be my A. This number, including that sign, is going to be your B. Finally, C is going to be your 2. So it's always including that sign. Just be very, very careful about that if you're in Algebra 1. But if you're in geometry, this should not be too bad for you. And so let's say if I give you an equation that just look kind of like this. Y is equal to 9x squared minus just 2. Now this scenario is a little bit confusing. I'll ask the same question again. Is this in standard form? So in that little quiz you're going to do, there will be a lot of this. Is this in standard form? Yes, it is, because the x squared is there. If it's in standard form, that means I should be able to find the A, I should be able to find the B, and I should be able to find the C, right? But in this scenario, it seems like I'm missing something. I'm missing something because the standard form actually is like this. Y is equal to ax squared plus bx plus c. So if I'm pairing this, okay, I know my A is definitely going to be 9. But I don't have the x term. So what happened to the x? So basically what this means is I should still have that b, but it's not there. So y is equal to 9x plus the x, which I'm missing that, and I still have that c, which is -2. Now, if I do not have the b, that means your b is equal to 0. So a term in there that's missing, that basically means it's 0. So b is going to be 0 in this scenario, and c is just going to be your -2. So even for a quadratic equation that doesn't come with all the terms, it will still work. It will still work. So you'll get a is equal to 9, b is equal to 0, c is equal to -2. Another example. So this time I'm just going to say y is equal to -6x squared. Is this in standard form? Yes, it is, because it's an x squared. So a is equal to, hopefully by now you can see it, this is going to be that number, -6. I do not have b, I do not have c. Don't worry about it. We are just going to fill all of those with zeros. Alright, so that will be the very first bit of this video. And when you're done with this part, I want you to go onto Schoology and do the very first quiz for me. The question will be involved with whether something is standard form or not. I may ask you to arrange some items and give me the standard form. It's just going to be multiple choice. And I may ask you to pick up the A, B, and C for me. So when you're done, you can carry on with this video. So go now and do good on that.